Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. This is going to be an emergency recording as there is a tornado outbreak expected in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa, along with extreme and devastating wind damage expected. We have a moderate risk of severe weather from Lake Michigan to Chicago and northern and central-ish Illinois into extreme portions of southern Wisconsin and eastern Iowa, the Quad Cities area, along with extreme portions of northeastern Missouri. We also have an enhanced risk expanding from Missouri all the way up into Michigan, and it actually hits Grand Traverse where my friend is, and doesn't get that far over, doesn't get to Detroit. Uh, Goes all the way from Lake Michigan to Lake Huron. Um, so then we have two slight risks. We have one over here from the New York City to Trenton to Philadelphia to Wilmington to Baltimore to DC area, the I-95 corridor. We're gonna get to that later, but we also have another slight risk extending from the Texas Panhandle up through Oklahoma City into the Midwest and into Lake Huron, and then a marginal risk extending from the Texas Panhandle, and then it goes, up towards around the Lake Huron, Lake Superior border vicinity, and then also goes into the Atlantic over here. We have a 15% SIG 2 or conditional intensity group 2 risk of tornadoes. This means that there is a 15% chance that within a 25-mile point, 25 miles of a given point inside that risk, there's a 15% chance that a supercell or anything can spawn a tornado that is capable of producing wind damage of up to or greater than EF3 level damage. Now, on my phone, I'll pull up what EF3 level damage is. EF3 level damage is tornadic winds of 136 to 165 miles per hour. That is EF3 level damage on the enhanced Fujita scale. Anything over that is EF4 or EF5 damage. So we could potentially see an EF4 tornado today. We could see an EF3 tornado today, and God forbid we see an EF5 tornado today. I hope not, but nobody knows. I mean, it happened with Enderlin, North Dakota in like June 20th of last year, so that was all because train cars were flung. But yeah, anyways, I digress. So there's a 15% SIG 2 conditional intensity group 2 risk of tornadoes extending from, just east of Rockford all the way back into the Quad Cities area and northeastern Missouri, that extreme sliver there. Then we have a 10% SIG 1 or conditional intensity group 1 risk of tornadoes that extends from the Chicago area all the way into portions of northwestern Indiana, into southern Wisconsin, eastern and central Iowa, into northeastern Missouri. The hatched risk, 5%, goes all the way back from Iowa and Missouri up into Michigan and portions of Lake Huron. And then the 5% goes from central Iowa into central Missouri, all the way back into Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan and Lake Huron. Same thing with the 2%, except the 2% is a little bit farther south in Missouri, a little bit farther west in Iowa, and actually touches Kansas and also goes into Huron and also portions of Canada as well, Ontario. So yeah, that's that. Uh, we also have an extreme risk of wind damage. We have a 60%, 60. We have a 60% conditional intensity group 1 risk of wind damage. There is extreme wind damage. Extreme wind damage is present. and is going to occur. There's already a mesoscale convective system looking thing that's going through Iowa and will go through Illinois very soon. It's already places are already recording wind gusts of 72 miles per hour, which is greater than severe limits, and even pushing 80 miles per hour. So what this means, what this 60% here means, is that the probabilities of thunderstorms producing wind damage of, I'm not sure what hatching really means, to be honest. Uh, what this means is that 60% risks of, there's a 60% probability of a single storm within 25 miles of a given point producing winds that are just tremendous over hurricane force. This is This is absolutely prolific, and I'm not surprised to see a swath of heavily damaging wind reports across Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan today. I am not surprised if I do see that, and I'm not surprised if we get at least 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts because the probability is super high. Super duper high. We have a 45% risk, which is that pink area. That purplish area is from, again, Iowa to portions of extreme northeastern Illinois extreme northeastern portions of Missouri into the bulk of Illinois, the Chicago metro, and into extreme portions of southern Wisconsin into Lake Michigan. The pink area, or the 45% with a hatching, goes from Iowa to northeast Missouri to Illinois and Wisconsin to Indiana and Michigan. The 30% hatched risk goes from Missouri and Iowa all the way back into Michigan, including most of Lake Michigan and also touching Lake Huron. The 15% goes from the Texas Panhandle into Lake Huron, and same thing with the 5%. And the 5% actually connects with this secondary risk. There's a 30% risk of wind damage from, northwestern New Jersey, just outside of the New York area, but is touching the New York metro, near like Warren, New Jersey. Going back into Trenton, Philadelphia, Wilmington, Baltimore, the Washington, D.C. area, so the I-95 corridor, basically. And there's a 15% risk of wind damage from New York City all the way up through Connecticut into New York State. And then New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. So that is a whole lot. And then, the 5% they connect. And then for hail, nothing really too great. There's a 15% hatched risk of hail extending from kind of the Kansas City limits all the way back into Chicago. And then there's a regular 15% chance of hail extending from the Texas Panhandle all the way, and then the whole entire state of Michigan. Lake Michigan and Lake Huron all affected. And then same thing with the 5%. Goes from the Texas Panhandle and then, into the Midwest and also into portions of western Lake Erie. Lake Erie is affected by this. Also, Ontario is affected by this. And then the rest of Lake Michigan is affected by this. Even portions of extreme eastern Lake Superior is also affected by this. And can't forget, we have a risk of hail on the East Coast, extending from New York City to Connecticut to the New York State, upstate New York or whatever, to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia. And did I say Pennsylvania? I hope I did. But yeah, so this is going to be an extremely significant, life-threatening, prolific absolutely dangerous day for the Chicago Metro, the Quad Cities area, and generally northern and central Illinois. So if you live in the red region, even in the orange region, please be prepared. But more specifically, in this region, the red or the yellow, and especially those dashed lines, or the pink and purple, if you live in those areas, please, please be ready. Be ready to see some prolific severe weather. Be ready to see some extremely dangerous and life-threatening tornadoes that are knocking on your door. And please be prepared to see some absolutely horrifying wind damage that's greater than any hurricane in Illinois. Please, just do that. Now, since this is an emergency level recording, I do have other resources pulled up. I have the Storm Prediction Center Outlook. I also have the HRRR model, 12Z specifically, and the National Weather Service, Chicago, Romeoville, Illinois area forecast discussion. They wrote a lot, so props to them, but it's not like what we do on the East Coast where it's like broken up into segments. It's just all conglomerated together into 6 paragraphs. Well, technically 9 because there's an update. So, oh, it's gonna be a joy. It's gonna just. Well, there's no turning back now. So let me see if I could try and take the refreshes. Not sure how I can get rid of refreshes, because they're pretty annoying. Um, don't be stupid with me. This thing wants to be stupid with me. This thing does not want to load right. There we go. Okay, I don't really know how to get rid of refreshes. I don't see any option available. So we're just gonna have to deal with it. Take it at face value. Anyways, so summary. Widespread severe thunderstorms are expected across parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes region, including Iowa, northern Missouri, northern Illinois, and southern Wisconsin to lower Michigan and northern Indiana. This does include the potential for widespread to intense, damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes, some of which may be strong. Should have put very strong, but oh well. They're way more they have way more of an expertise than I do, so what am I saying? Midwest and Great Lakes. Portions of the region have been upgraded to a moderate risk. Another very active day with widespread and intense severe thunderstorms is expected regionally. A consequential severe risk is already ongoing this morning. Excuse me. Across Iowa and far northern Missouri, and will continue east-northeastward and become more prominent regionally during the day. A well-organized eastward accelerating Boeing cluster of storms, now supported by an apparent mesoscale convective vortice, has had a history of measured severe caliber wind gusts overnight and in the pre-dawn hours from southeast Nebraska into southern Iowa. A similar severe risk should continue northeastward through the midday across eastern Iowa and far northeast Missouri towards northern Illinois, with more of a surface-based tornado risk potentially unfolding relatively early today, aside from a continued prominent risk of damaging winds. Scenario is supported by a robust southwesterly low-level jet and moisture transport, even with some diurnal weakening of the low-level jet possible. What is also influential is a prominent and increasingly neutral tilt shortwave trough and jet streak crossing the Corn Belt, notably strong features by mid-June standards. Fun fact, the Corn Belt helps with severe weather outbreaks and tornado outbreaks because they affect the dew points with evapotranspiration. There's transpiration and evaporation going on, which is it's called the Corn Belt because it's just corn and its moisture is just evaporating and transpirating up into the atmosphere, contributing to heightened dew points, and so there is usually a belt of higher than normal dew points, and relative humidity values. Anyways, I digress again. So, convective convective overturning and outflow from last evening's mesoscale convective system are still residual factors that are evident this morning in observational data and supplemental 3D mesoanalysis across far eastern Iowa, far northeast Missouri into central Illinois. This is sampled by the 12Z observed sounding from KILX or Lincoln, Illinois, and these residual factors may somewhat southward focus the peak and most intense severe weather later today, with more uncertainty progressively northward in general proximity to Lake Michigan latitudinally, including parts of Wisconsin and Michigan. The timing and residual impacts of this morning's mesoscale convective system across Iowa and northern Missouri into northern Illinois and severe potential in its wake near the surface low and front, and or to its response fluxes, and or to its mesoscale convective system north-northeast are a bit less uncertain. That said, mass response and fluxes related to the dynamic shortwave trough and speed max will be notable and consistent with heightened severe potential even if outflow and cloud debris exists and subregional areas of destabilization are suboptimal. Details of later afternoon severe potential is somewhat contingent on how the morning mesoscale convective system further evolves, but a window for redevelopment in its immediate wake will probably exist. This will lead to a renewed round of severe thunderstorms as development occurs near the cold front and perhaps preferentially favors prior outflow with a damaging wind and tornado risk continuing eastward this evening as the low-level jet re-intensifies and as thunderstorms gradually grow upscale towards Lake Michigan and across Illinois, Indiana, and lower Michigan. Eastern Kansas and the Southern Plains. Additional thunderstorm development is expected along the trailing cold front into portions of the Central and Southern Plains. Deep layer shear will be maximized in the post-frontal environment. However, around 20 to 30 knots of effective bulk shear and moderate to strong instability will support some supercell structures capable of large hail and damaging winds. Storm motion and boundary parallel shear will likely lead to clustering and messy modes over time. Mid-Atlantic and Central Appalachians, forcing for ascent from multiple shortwave disturbances across the Northeast and dew points in the 60s to 70s will support development of widely scattered thunderstorms by the afternoon across the Mid-Atlantic into the Central Appalachians. Though vertical shear will be generally weak, moderate to strong instability will be in place. Though vertical shear will be generally weak, moderate to strong instability will be in place, will support stronger updrafts capable of damaging winds. That was a weird sentence to say. It is likely that severe clusters will emerge with the potential for organizing along cold pools and more focused corridors of damaging wind potential. So that's that. So again, to recap, this is the moderate risk of severe weather. The red area, what will occur or what is expected to occur in this area will be strong to intense tornadoes and extremely damaging winds capable of exceeding any hurricane or any remnants of a hurricane that Illinois has ever seen, and also some potentially large hail. But the large hail is not necessarily the main concern here. It's obviously the wind and the tornadoes. Now, since this is a non-traditional video that I'm going to be making, this is just an emergency level video. I'm only going to be covering aspects of today's severe weather, not tomorrow, not Friday, or not Saturday or Sunday or anything of the day 2 to 8 period. I'm not going to be covering day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, or day 8. I'm only covering today, which is day 1, and all the aspects of it. So let's go to the HRRR model now. This is the 12Z. You can see all of this convection occurring over here in southwestern Iowa, extending into portions closer to Chicago. And then, there's just general rain showers and just nasty convection. So as we go further in time, you see that this convection, just look at that. Look at that. Look, it wasn't super terrible, but then boom, one freaking frame. You already see that it's rapidly intensified with many more clusters of pooling, hail, and all that stuff. Go forward another hour, you could see the bowing shape. You could see how it bows outward towards, like, it looks like a curve. It's curving. That is indicative heavily of extreme winds. You could see that in every single derecho, it has these curves and it bows out and curves and does all these weird things. Go forward another frame. Still curvy, but it's a little bit more disorganized, probably getting closer to becoming a major tornado threat and subsiding. Now, this is kind of where the convection is at right now. If I pull up real-time radar on my phone, it's actually breaching Cedar Rapids. Yeah, it's getting close to Davenport. So this is kind of where it's not quite here, but it's also not quite here. It's a little bit in between. It's the convection is occurring right now in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, and Ottumwa, Iowa, and is getting closer to Burlington, Iowa, Davenport, the Quad Cities, Maquoketa, Dubuque, and Galesburg, Illinois. It's getting closer to that. There is also a tornado warning for the county that withholds Cedar Rapids. The counties that are affected include Johnson, Lynn, and northeastern Iowa counties that for this tornado warning. So yeah, that's that. So as you can see, there's a bit more of a linear component here. You could see there's a trailing convection coming down, and that's because the cold front is going to start hitting and hitting, coming from behind. Just realized that I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, so then you still see a more linear component, but now you start to see that the convection is starting to become a little bit more discrete. You start to see that there is less congealment of the convection here. It's not convectively congealed anymore. It's starting to support supercells. You see this could be a cluster of supercells. This could be a cluster of supercells. That could be a supercell. And then as you go forward in time, let's fast forward a couple, like this frame, this frame, this frame. Now you should start to see a more linear component with potentially some embedded tornadoes. These may even be supercells down here. These may be supercells. If you get supercells just south of Chicago, just like this, they can rapidly grow and intensify and become major tornado producers. There's even storms going into Lake Michigan, storms up here in Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, La Crosse area. So this is not good. I mean, obviously it's not good. We have a 60% risk of wind and a 15% double hatched risk of tornadoes. It's obviously not good. But see, you also have hail cores, which means significant updraft potential. Then you start to see that linear component touching. It's near Oklahoma City. It's near Oklahoma County. It's near all those counties in Oklahoma surrounding the OKC metro. So it's getting closer to Oklahoma City and also Tulsa as well. As you can see, there's still supercells. This could be a supercell. These could be a cluster of supercells affecting southern Chicago, the southern Chicago limits. Over here, this just looks like major wind damage. This just looks like major wind damage. It looks solid. It looks very, very tough. It looks like the main root of all the wind damage and all the tornadoes occurring. But you could also have embedded supercells within this line. But probably a more wind damage is favorable from, if you drew a line from Kansas City to St. Louis, and then you'd go south of that line, that's where potentially all wind damage or hail damage or whatever damage is favored. But if you draw that line from Kansas City to St. Louis and you go north, that's when all tornadoes and all winds, so a congealment, and hail. Well, all hazards are expected. Drew a line, literally, this interstate from Kansas City to St. Louis, that Interstate 70, if you drew a line from Interstate 70 and you would go north or south, north of Interstate 70 is where all hazards are expected. South of Interstate 70 is where generally more wind and hail is expected, but not really tornadoes. So yeah, again, you could see this cluster in northwestern Illinois protruding and heading towards the Chicago area. You already have some thunderstorms affecting the southern Chicago area. So yeah, then you go forward again, looks even tougher. I mean, to be honest, it looks absolutely horrible. You still, and then, kind of the isolated convection goes away and departs, and now you're just left with this. And then it goes forward. Now it's, you can already see, you can see the little curve. That's wind damage. And now look at this. Now this is a very bad sight to see because you see all these prefrontal cells in Illinois, in Indiana. Those can be significant tornado producers. They can because they haven't been affected by the cold front yet. This can be a line of wind damage. Now, obviously, I'm not saying the Interstate 70 analogy. I'm not saying that severe winds couldn't occur south of Interstate 70, but that's just like most likely not to occur. Everything is most likely to occur north of Interstate 70, north of Interstate 80. Yeah, north of Interstate 80 or around Interstate 80. So, yeah. And then you go forward in time. Just going to use the slider here. The wind damage breaches and see the curve, the way it curves, it looks like a backwards S. It curves into Michigan, and then there's a line that's going back into Chicago, and then there's a curve that's heavily indicative of extreme wind damage right there. And then you can see that linear component going all the way from southern Chicago and the Chicago city limits all the way down into Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma, and will touch Texas. So just to recap there, so this is what it is right now, and this is what it will be. You could see the linear component is starting to occur. You could see the cold front really taking shape. You could see uh, the very tough cluster of thunderstorms breaching northern Illinois. You could also see the isolated supercells potentially that are to the east of the cold front. Then you could see it turns into an S shape, and then it just goes through Indiana, Indianapolis, breaches Ohio, and then gets to Detroit, and then it just kind of dissipates, and then that's really it. That's it. That's it for the HRRR model. That's it. Also unrelated, but kind of related. There is a 2 days? What? Okay, so apparently there is a mesoscale precipitation discussion, and it says expires in 2 days. It's valid. What? It's valid 13th. What? This is so confusing. Why does it take 2 days? What? Okay, this is okay. I'm gonna have to because I've never seen a mesoscale precipitation discussion expiring in 2 freaking days. Okay, this is okay. The Weather Prediction Center has to definitely do something about that because that's just not how that works. It doesn't expire in 2 freaking days. That's just sorry. I'll be right back. I gotta blow my nose. Alright, everybody, I'm back. So, we're done with the Storm Prediction Center day one, but we can always reference it in the future if it wants to load and be all that stupid. We could always reference this in the future. We're done with the HRRR, but we can always reference it in the future. Here, key messages. Another round or two of severe storms are expected today, with the period of greatest threat between 4 and 11 p.m. All hazards, tornadoes, destructive winds, and destructive hail are possible across the entire area. In particular, there is a threat for strong to intense tornadoes this evening from 4 to 8 p.m., especially along and north of Interstate 78, or Interstate 88, sorry, not Interstate 78. Thinking of my Interstate G. And then after a dry and cooler day on Friday, there's another threat for severe weather on Saturday. Okay, so we're going to read the update first. Over the past few hours, this was issued at 5:53 a.m. Central Daylight Time, which is 6:53 a.m. Eastern. Since Chicago is in Central Daylight Time, if you're on the East Coast, you have to move the time frames forward by an hour. So right now, for Chicago, it's 9:38. But for here, it's 10:38. So that hour difference may be a little bit confusing, but anyways, over the past few hours, a compact mesoscale convective system has emerged across far southwestern Iowa. Per the recent KOAX or Omaha radar data, the system is highly organized with signs of a hybrid cold pool and gravity wave along the leading edge supporting measured severe wind gusts. While convective allowing model-based guidance has been insisting that the mesoscale convective system will turn a northeasterly track early this morning, it has instead remained on a due easterly trajectory. As a result, I am starting to wonder if it will just plow eastward and through the heart of the forecast area later this morning, rather than along and north of Interstate 80, still looking like an arrival time near the Interstate 39 corridor in the 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. timeframe. You could see that with the HRRR. You could see this is the bulk of convection. The bulk of convection starts right here, eastern Iowa. The nose of Iowa, basically. That's what I'm going to call it. And it starts, and it continues, and it goes, 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 and it goes into northern Chicago. And then this S shape appears, and then that goes through Chicago, and then that's going to breach Indianapolis, breach Ohio, get to Cleveland and Columbus. But before it does, it just fades. So yeah, the HRRR definitely supports the plowing eastward timeframe, at least the 12Z. Should a further south track of the convective system verify into the early afternoon hours, we would have to think that rapid air mass recovery may be stunted with northward extent, and the warm front may instead verify closer to Interstate 80 or Interstate 88 in time for the second round of thunderstorms. If this were to occur, the main tornado threat area could end up further to the south than previously thought. At the same time, we could envision the strongest instability being modestly offset from the strongest low-level shear, which would potentially mitigate a higher-end tornado scenario. These are the types of details that will come into closer detail in the hours before the event. At this point, we did increase probabilities of precipitation, both in aerial coverage and actual values across much of the area in the 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. time frame windows, with the expectation for the first round of thunderstorms to move through more of the area rather than just the northern half. And trends will continue to inform later forecast updates. So, obviously, addressing the elephant in the room here first, threat for strong tornadoes and destructive winds in the region this afternoon and evening, issued at 4:04 Eastern, 3:04 Central. Early morning water vapor imagery depicts broad aggregate upper-level troughing centered on the northern plains. Several embedded short wavelength troughs are parading around the perimeter of the broad trough, including a notable impulse moving across central Wyoming at press time. Per recent mesoanalysis data across the Central Plains, the impulse has already led to the development of a Lee cyclone centered in western Kansas. Meanwhile, a broad region of warming cloud tops extends across the lower Great Lakes, associated with a gradually decaying mesoscale convective system. Per a recent surface analysis, Outflow from the convective system has, temporarily, displaced a warm frontal zone southward, with the boundary currently stretching from central Indiana through south-central Illinois and northeastern Missouri. Between both large-scale features, convection is developing across southern Nebraska, associated with presumably a mid-level gravity wave originating from unbalanced upper-level flow, a notable 75-knot jet streak departing the base of the aforementioned Wyoming shortwave. Indeed, I am noting the hallmarks of developing gravity wave associated convection (GWAC) along the Interstate 80 corridor in Nebraska at press time. As the Wyoming shortwave ejects east-northeastward into the Great Lakes this morning, the Southern Plains low will rapidly shift northeastward from near Kansas City, Missouri, towards central Iowa. Ahead of the surface low, the developing convection in southern Nebraska is expected to intensify and consolidate into a compact mesoscale convective system or gravity wave associated convective supercell complex and track east-northeastward towards the Mississippi River and eventually into northern Illinois. It is unclear if the convection would ultimately become surface-based as the boundary layer warms and the synoptic warm front retreats northward. More on this soon, though the presence of steep mid-level lapse rates contributing to most unstable cape of over 2,000 joules per kilogram and increasing shear profiles, effective shear in excess of 50 knots, will support a threat for destructive winds, i.e. over 70 miles per hour, and hail over 2 inches in diameter, with the first round of thunderstorms. The time window for the early day thunderstorms looks to generally be between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Central, mainly north of Interstate 80. We are somewhat skeptical of convective allowing model guidance depicting early afternoon convection decaying while approaching Lake Michigan. Later this afternoon and the evening, ensemble model guidance remains in agreement that the surface low will deepen towards the lower to mid-990s millibar range while lifting into central Wisconsin. Intensifying south to southwesterly flow on the southeastern side of the surface low that rhymed for no reason, sorry, will lead to rapid air mass recovery across northern Illinois as well as the advection of an elevated mixed layer plume back into the lower Great Lakes. Convective allowing model-based guidance suggests that dew points in the warm sector will soar into the mid to locally upper 70s this afternoon, apparently a consequence of evaporation of water from the heavy rain yesterday evening and early this morning to our south and west, resulting mean 1 kilometer mixing ratios nearing 19, I think that's 19 grams per kilogram, and mid-level lapse rates of around 8 degrees Celsius per kilometer. Kelvin per kilometer? What do you mean? Celsius per kilometer Kelvin will contribute to mixed layer convective available potential energy of locally 3,500 joules per kilogram in the warm sector. At the same time, low to upper level flow will rapidly intensify across the warm sector during the afternoon and evening, leading to strong deep layer shear profiles. Thunderstorms appear poised to develop across central Iowa by mid-afternoon and then expand in coverage and increase in intensity while moving towards northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin this evening, and eventually northwestern Indiana after sunset. Given this degree of strong forcing, strong instability, high moisture values, and all that, a somewhat messy storm mode is expected, with a mix of high precipitation supercells and line clusters eventually merging into a squall line with a threat for all hazards: tornadoes, destructive winds, and wind-blown damaging hail. The main time window for severe weather this evening appears to be from 4 to 11 p.m. I am quite concerned in a relatively narrow west to east zone favorable for strong to intense tornadoes, i.e. EF3+, somewhere across southern Wisconsin or northern Illinois, particularly between 4 and 8 p.m. Forecast soundings along this warm front this evening depict a rare and volatile combination of exceptional instability augmented by locally pooled moisture, with a mixed layer cape over 4,000 joules per kilogram, and very intense low-level shear, 350 joules per what joules per kilogram? 350 meters squared per second squared of 0 to 1 kilometers storm relative velocity for eastward moving storms, nearly all of characterized by streamwise horizontal vorticity. And this leads to effective significant tornado parameter values in the double digits. STP values are over 10. Pinpointing to the eventual location of the warm front will be paramount to identifying the zone of greatest tornado potential, with reasonable outcomes ranging from the front stalling near Interstate 88 in northern Illinois to the Interstate 94 corridor in southern Wisconsin. Consensus is near the Wisconsin state line. Such a threat for strong to intense tornadoes is contingent on a supercell storm mode being maintained, though the degree of low-level shear would still support strong quasi-linear convective system tornadoes near the warm front. So even QLCS tornadoes are gonna... This is a horrible day for severe weather. Just want to conclude by saying that environments supportive of strong to intense tornadoes often have many off-ramps and are accordingly never a guarantee. Will the warm front surge well north of our area, taking the primary tornado threat with it? Will the morning storms suppress the warm front south or not allow for rapid destabilization ahead of the cold front? Will storm mode remain far too messy to sustain strong low-level rotation and tornadoes? Or will there be a discrete supercell that latches onto the warm front draped across our area? These factors and questions are essentially noise within the broader signal to craft a forecast and can only be determined as an event is unfolding, sometimes literally just an hour or two beforehand. Taken altogether, today is a day to stay very connected to the forecast and to ensure you have multiple ways to get warning information for the off chance that the dominoes do end up falling in the wrong direction in our area. Wow. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 paragraphs plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I had to read 16 paragraphs there. Am I proud of it? Absolutely, I'm very proud of it. And yeah, I'm very happy I read all of this information to you guys. I mean, my lungs may be like cavitated and will like die, but still, it's very important. This is an emergency situation. You've heard everything. If you live in Chicago, if you live in the red area, if you live in the southern parts of the orange area, please, 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 especially if you live in this red area, this yellow area, or this purple area, or this pink area. If you live in those areas, please stay aware of the forecast. Do it. You will not regret it. Please do it. Please. Remember, if there is a tornado warning of any kind, tornado warning, confirmed tornado warning, PDS tornado warning, especially a tornado emergency, get to shelter immediately. If you live in a mobile home, get out of it. Get out of the mobile home. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. And go to a sturdy structure. Go to a family's house. Go to a sturdy structure that you know is supportive and is not a mobile home, has a tornado shelter, is capable of sustaining damage from tornadoes, and is capable of, having you and everyone else survive. You need to do that. You need to get ahead of yourself and get ahead of everything, especially if you're under a destructive 80, 90, 100, even 110 mile per hour severe winds. If you're under a destructive severe thunderstorm warning, with wind damage being the primary threat, get out of a mobile home. Your mobile home will sustain severe damage, even from straight-line damaging winds. Straight-line damaging winds are absolutely horrifying, and I've seen many trucks, many cars, many things being blown off the road because of how intense the wind gusts can be. This is not a day to mess around with. This is a day to take extremely seriously. We've seen the immediate threat of significant tornadoes. You've seen the absolutely extraordinary threat for severe winds. You've seen all of that. And yes, I know there's a 15% hatch risk of hail, but the hail's not the main concern here. It's just an insult to injury. You need to be extremely careful. You need to take all the precautions and preparedness actions that you can. If you're under any kind of warning today, take shelter, take shelter, take shelter. If you live in a mobile home, get out of the shelter, go to a sturdy, safe place that will not blow over like a mobile home will and instantly collapse. Do not stay in a mobile home. And if somehow you have no transportation, if you have no money, you have nothing, and you have to stay in the mobile home, well, I'm wishing that you survive because statistically it's very unlikely that you survive. And I'm not saying this to be like morbid, but I'm also saying it to be morbid. It's very scary what tornadoes and mobile homes do. Mobile homes crumple under the threat of a tornado. They literally do. I've seen it. I've heard stories. I've watched whole ass documentaries. So please, if you live in a mobile home, get out of it. Also, never park under an overpass. You are an idiot if you do, and I understand. I understand. With hail, with wind, with tornado concerns, maybe, but you need to be more focused on the weather. You need to be more focused about you need to be more focused about being secure. You're not secure under an overpass. You're not. You're still exposed to all of the elements. You're still outside. You're still vulnerable. Plus, you're putting other people's lives in danger too. So just don't do it. And people always say that hiding under an overpass from a tornado will help. I don't know where that myth came from, but that's just the complete opposite. It just doesn't happen. Just no, it just doesn't. It's not how it works. An overpass will not shelter you from a tornado. It will only make the winds from the tornado substantially worse and can kill you faster and rip apart you quicker and easier. You Again, I don't mean to say this to be morbid, but I'm saying this to invoke a fear so that you're more understanding of this, so that you can actually take this seriously. I am definitely going to be making a recap on this in the future. So please, take what I'm saying at face value. Do what I say and say what I do. Please, this will save your life. I have no words. I hope everyone survives this. And I hope everyone can see the light of day tomorrow. If you live in Chicago, Sycamore, Rockford, Freeport, Oregon, Illinois, uh, Dixon, Clinton, Princeton, Cambridge, Galesburg, Bloomington, Decatur, Springfield, Urbana, and Kankakee, Morris, Joliet, Evanston, Waukegan, Kenosha, Milwaukee, Madison, Jefferson, Janesville, Darlington, Monroe, Wisconsin, Monticello, Dodgeville, Mineral Point, Lancaster, Wisconsin, Jamestown, and Dubuque. I hope you all survive, because this is a day where you're going to have to pray, and prayers will be needed today. Will be needed. So please, see the light of day. I hope you can. Have a wonderful day. And if this may be your last, have a wonderful life in heaven.